I'm Andrea. I'm with the CSU Entertainment Alliance. Thank you for joining us today for the Backstage info session. We have Gerardo Maravilla, who is the casting specialist at Backstage, and he will be telling you guys more about Backstage and like how to make the best casting decisions on there and a little bit more about their company. And just so you guys know, um, we will have a Q&A at the end. Please make sure that your mics are muted throughout this presentation. And any questions you might have, you can leave them in the chat. All right, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Andre. I appreciate it. Hello, my name is Gerardo Maravilla. A lot of my friends call me Jerry. I'm an independent filmmaker and also a casting specialist at Backstage. I actually first learned about Backstage when I was an undergraduate. I went to Occidental College and we were given a code to be able to post casting calls for our first projects. And it's a tool that I've continued to utilize as a filmmaker. Even with my last short film, which I made in collaboration with the Latino Film Institute and Netflix, and we used Backstage to do some background extras casting work. And so I'm happy to speak with all of you about how to, first jump into this casting process, talk about a little bit more about Backstage, give you some tips for posting a casting call, and then just some general advice about holding auditions and working with actors and all of that. What I'm going to do is share my screen here. So hopefully you guys can see that's coming through. If you just a little bit of background on Backstage to get started. If you didn't know, Backstage is a company that started off in New York in the 1960s. It was a magazine initially, just only, and it's where some casting directors, producers would put up casting calls, and actors would show up for auditions, and it's how actors even like Robert De Niro or Al Pacino say they got some of their first roles in New York. We still have our magazine, but as you can imagine, the majority of our casting notices are now posted on our website, backstage.com, which I always like to say there are two sides to Backstage. There's the actor side, and then there's the filmmaker side. So actors pay a monthly subscription fee in order to submit themselves to projects, and that's just part of like the business model. And then there's the filmmaker side where it's actually free to create a filmmaker profile. And then what happens is that there's typically a charge to post a casting call, but I'm going to give you guys all the promo codes. You can be able to post your casting calls for free. I just mentioned this because sometimes I get emails or people get confused of like, oh, I was trying to get started on Backstage, but it was trying to charge me to create a profile. I'm like, oh, you're on the actor side. So I think the easiest way to navigate that is if you go to backstage.com. If you click post a job, that'll get you started on the filmmaker side. Because if you click join, that's going to be the actor side of things. So again, just Backstage, post a job will get you on the right track. From there, it's pretty easy to create a profile, your name, your email address. My recommendation is when you're getting started is to actually use your student email address. There's a couple reasons for that. One being that the code I'm going to give you to post for free is tied to schools. And so the best way to prove that you're a student is to use a .edu email address. Second reason is that when you are a student, your project's usually backed by your school, and so that means you have an accredited institution, like adding authenticity to your project. So like anytime you have an institution that can back you, it's like well worth doing that. It just kind of helps get the projects going. Excuse me. Um, in terms of like having that kind of additional support. Password can be whatever you want, of course. Occupation from that drop-down menu, I would suggest selecting student. Job title can be whatever your role is on the film, writer, director, producer. Sometimes filmmaker works when you're doing student projects because you're doing everything, right? So filmmaker can be a good catch-all there. Um, Company name, company website, you can just put whatever your school is. That's a standard there. And then really basic, just fill out the rest of the details as named here. One thing I like to mention too is that every profile on Backstage has to go through a background check or ID verification process. It's the same technology that Uber and Airbnb utilize, but this is done primarily just to ensure that everybody is who they say they are, that there's not like bots or AI or like fake people trying to sign up for projects and stuff. If you have any concerns about that background check or anything like that, my email will be at the end of this thing, and I can put it in the chat before we leave, and you guys can totally feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. But just a heads up on that. Um, so that's just getting started on Backstage, but I think one of the best ways to view casting overall is to really think about it from the actor's perspective. You know, if you're a filmmaker, you want the best actors possible for your film, right? And so what are the best actors looking for when they are looking at projects that they want to audition for? How can you get into that actor's mindset? So kind of covers what I'm talking about, cover these three columns right now, you know, like overall, but I'm going to focus on number one, which are things you should be thinking about before you even log on to Backstage, right? First thing you want to think about is scheduling, right? Do you have an idea of when you're going to shoot, how many days you're going to shoot, how many days you're going to need each actor for? You know, maybe you need a lead actor for 2 or 3 days, or you have supporting roles like one day or a half day. Just kind of have a general sense in mind of what that is, so actors know what they have to commit to. Second piece is just shooting about your shooting conditions. Are you shooting inside or outside? Are you shooting on a stage? Are you shooting on location? What's the weather going to be like? I'm based in Los Angeles. It doesn't rain all the time, but it loves to rain when people have a film shoot plan. So like always just like be sure to check the weather ahead of time for that. Um, Even if like, you know, maybe you're making a movie that's set around Christmas time, but you're shooting, you know, in August when it's like 95 to 100 degrees, you know, like what are the wardrobe conditions and stuff like that that the actor might have to consider. Third piece is budget, you know. If you can pay actors, that's fantastic. But you know, it's well known within the industry. That's often not the case with student films, and that's okay. We just ask that you provide the industry standard of copy, credit, meal. Copy meaning you provide each actor with a copy of the film when it's done, like a link to a download of like a QuickTime movie file or something. If an actor is working for free, this is fundamentally what they're working for. You know, they want to be able to add clips to their acting reel. They want to send examples of their work to other directors or producers. That's going to help them get more work in the future. If you don't remember anything I say, just please remember to give a copy of your film to the actors. It's like the most important part of this relationship. You know, you're representing also your school as well too, and you know, you don't want to develop a reputation as a filmmaker who doesn't provide actors with a copy of the film. Second piece is credit. You know, just make sure to spell each actor's name properly and credit them properly. I know it seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how often there are typos or misspellings in like big TV shows and movies. And then the last piece of that is meal. So if you have an actor who's working on set for more than 4 hours, do have to feed them. So while you may not have money to pay them, again, if they're on set for more than 4 hours, you should have a budgetary way to be able to provide them with a meal. And then the last piece you want to consider are just general safety protocols. So like really thinking about your script, like are there any stunts? Are there any fight scenes? Are there any like close like romantic scenes or things like that where you might need some additional professional help, like a stunt coordinator, like an intimacy coordinator. These are all things that you want to keep in mind when you move forward. So yeah, just making sure you have all the right professionals on board. So if you go through that, if it's just you or your producer and you kind of cover this checklist, you'll be in a great spot and you'll be able to move on to actually start to post your casting notice on Backstage. So when you do that, you'd log into your account. You can hover over the clapper board. It'll say your productions. If this is your first one, it'll say create one now. And the first thing it's going to ask you is to specify the kind of talent that you need. So I'm going to focus on actors and performers, which is what mostly, you know, film, TV work you're going to need. But you can see that people also look cast, you know, for voiceover roles, or you can even look for crew on Backstage. So if you need like a DP, a sound editor, a production assistant, production designer, any of that stuff, there's also the ability to do that on Backstage as well. Um, I'm gonna switch over here to what it looks like here. Like this is just from a short film I did a couple of years ago. It just asks you to fill in some project details. The first thing it's going to ask you for is the title. First tip really is to give your project a title, any title, even if you change it later. It's the first thing the actor sees. And so having a project with a name is going to be more interesting to them. than being like untitled student film, right? Or unnamed short film. Like that's not going to grab their attention. So yeah, give it a name. Under project type from this drop-down menu, I would actually suggest selecting student film. As I mentioned, there's a benefit to having an institution be backing your project. Beneath that is genre, where you can select up to three from this drop-down menu. So this just kind of helps, gives a little bit more information to the actor about what the tone and style of the film is going to be. Under company, you can put a production company name if you have one. If not, you can totally just put your school name. That works as well too. Beneath that is project personnel. And here you want to put the writer, director, producer, anybody like a casting director, casting associate. And I think anyone who might be communicating with the actors throughout the casting and audition process is really good to list them there and what their role is on the project. So then that way, if the actor gets an email or a message from somebody, it's really easy to tie them back to the initial casting call. Beneath that will be production description. Here's where you can give a little bit more information about the film itself. I recommend like maybe specifying what class it's for, if there's any opportunities that the actor is going to have to be able to come to like or see it at a screening. And then I would also recommend including a log line, which if you don't know, a log line is just like 2 to 3 sentence synopsis about the story of the film. Like if you were to imagine your film was on a streaming platform, what would be the little blurb there next to the poster that would tell the audience what it's about? That's going to help give the actors idea of what the story is, maybe hint at some roles that they could potentially audition for. Beneath that, there's a space where you can put in a website if you have one. You can put like a YouTube or Vimeo portfolio, personal website. If not, you can put your school's website or your film department's website as well too. Beneath that is union status. So Backstage is a global talent database. We have over 500,000 members. Some of those members are members of SAG-AFTRA, which if you didn't know is the leading actors union. Student projects can cast SAG actors, but there's usually a lot more there's additional paperwork, logistics, things you have to take care of if you work with SAG actors. So, different schools have different policies about whether or not they want their students to work with SAG actors. Sometimes, if you're a first year student, they want you to go non-union, but for thesis projects, maybe they'll let you use SAG actors. I think it's always best to talk to your professor about that specifically, but just to know what your union status is going into the project. If you do have to go non-union, it's totally okay. You'll still be able to find plenty of great talent. My last project, for different reasons, I had to go non-union, and I was still able to find like all the people that I needed. Um, Beneath that's payment information where it asks if you're going to be paying talent. If you're not, it's in this box here where you would put that copy credit meal info that I mentioned earlier on. If you are paying credit, it would paying the actors, it would just ask you to put in some more information there. Um, Beneath that is dates and locations. It says when should the listing expire? My recommendation is to have the listing expire on your very first day of shooting. That way you can continue to receive applicants up until you start production. That way, if you have any cancellations, somebody drops out, gets sick or something, you can continue to receive applicants and find actors when you need them. Um, Locations, it says where are you auditioning or interviewing talent? So we are a global talent database. So unless you have the money to fly people out, put them up in a hotel or Airbnb, you're going to want to select local and then input your city there. In California, we have a lot of large acting hubs, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco. So there shouldn't be too much of a problem there, but just know that, you'll want to select local unless you are in a position to do that. And then it'll ask for additional materials, which are totally optional. You can add a poster or bios or anything you want like that. But again, it's just totally optional. Um, so that's the basic project information they want you to put in. And then the next piece would be to go on to roles and submission settings. And here's where you would be able to fill out information about each character that you're casting for. Um, so the first thing it'll ask for is the character's name, or it says role name. You want to give each character a name. That's going to be more appealing to actors. They'd rather play a character with a name than to be like, student number one or loud talker number three. Like it's not going to be as engaging to them for their resume. So give it a name. Under role type, you can specify whether it's lead, supporting, background, etc. There's an option for remote work from home stuff. This is more common for like voiceover stuff. But if you have them coming to set, then you would select no. Um, and then here you can specify more information about the character. Like if the character is of a specific gender, you can select there. You can include the age range of the character, and then as well as include any ethnicity that you think, it's helpful if you're telling a culturally specific story. I'm Mexican American. A lot of the films that I make have to do, I'm looking for Latino actors for that. So it's been helpful. One thing I'd like to flag though, that if you cast someone who's under 18, you're working with a minor. So you're going to be subject to state and federal child labor laws. And similar to like the union thing, some schools have different policies on whether or not they want their students to work with minors. And so if you do want to go that route, be sure to check with your professor. Be sure to understand the child labor laws. There's a link at the end of this presentation that will help you understand those a little bit more as well too. But one workaround or thing that I've seen people do, including like Hollywood productions, is if they're doing something with their characters supposed to be in high school, they may cast someone who's 18, 19, or 20, but just looks younger. So then that way they are effectively working with an adult, but don't have to worry about maybe some more of the limitations that come with working with child actors. Um, Beneath that is skills. So if you have a character that needs to be able to do something in specific, like if maybe you need a character that can speak Spanish, or you need someone who can play an instrument, or maybe can do a particular kind of dance, you can input what that skill is that you need, and then specify whether you need the actor to be a beginner, intermediate, or expert at that skill. Beneath that is the role description, also known as the character breakdown. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here because this is probably the most important part of communicating what you're looking for in a performance to the actor. Um, so general rules here, or guidelines would be you want to keep it brief, no more than 3 to 4 sentences maximum. And I would really encourage you to think beyond like physical characteristics. Don't get too bogged down in like the character's hair color or their height or eye color, things like that, actors can wear wigs, contacts. You can use things to make actors look taller than they actually are. What you really want to get into here is to hone in on like, who is this person? What's their attitude? How do they carry themselves into the world? Like, if this character were to walk into a room, like, what would people think about them? Or when this character, goes out into the world, what do they want people to think about them? Thinking about it from that perspective will help give the actor more information about who this person is and how they should play the role. A casting director is a really big role in the film industry. They work closely with the director and the producers to write these character breakdowns. So if you haven't done it before, I really recommend practicing, trying out a few things, maybe sharing them with different friends and collaborators to see like, is what you are trying to communicate creatively coming across to the different people that are reading it. Because the closer you get at nailing this, the better the actors are going to be at coming in and giving you the kind of performance that you want. Um, then there's a few other questions you got to fill out here. It asks if the role requires nudity. If you mark yes, then our casting editors will be in communication with you. Try to get some more information about the shooting conditions. Again, this is just to make sure that everything is done safe and secure. And then there's another payment question. It says is if the role is paid, you can select no if it's not. The reason it asks this twice is that sometimes there are instances where maybe the project overall is unpaid, but maybe you may pay the lead actor or you may pay one or two actors. So it's just like trying to account for those different case scenarios. Um, you would hit save role once you've filled out and you're happy with how all of that looks. Um, and then you can continue by clicking this plus sign to continue to add characters that you want to have breakdowns for or that you're going to be casting for. Um, I'm going to skip over pre-screens because those are more common for larger projects, feature projects, or studio projects. But you can go straight to review here once you've built out all of your character breakdowns, and you can view their project, how it would appear on the site, all the information you've put in, the roles, the breakdown, all of that, the dates and locations, etc. And then the last piece here will be the upgrades feature, which is upgrade slash checkout. And basically, there is where you'll be able to input the promo code, which is CSUEA cast. And then you input that and hit apply promo code. It will zero out the cost. And I'll type that promo code into the chat as well too. Um, and you can use this as many times as you want. You can use this for whatever project you're on working right now. You can use it for projects in the future. You can even use it after you graduate. It's just like another tool for you all to have to be able to continue utilizing Backstage as a casting resource. So if you want, hold on to that code. It's not going to expire. You'll be able to use it throughout the rest of your career. So far at this point, hopefully you've set up your Backstage account with your student email address. You filled out your casting notice. You've used the student promo code here. From that point on, you're going to be primarily navigating the site through the casting dashboard, which is kind of like your main hub or home base for everything. When you log in, there's like this little odometer reading. It'll link you there, and there you'll be able to see all of your projects, your past, present drafts. You can see any upcoming auditions, any notes, recently viewed applications that you've seen on everything. Can show you, I think this is what my casting dashboard looks like. Let me zoom out a little. You can see all the previous projects I've had, different short lists, and things like that. You can also find this collaborators tool, which is super, I think, useful. Filmmaking is a collaborative medium, where you can invite people to work with you on particular projects. So you would hit invite a collaborator, specify which project you want them to work with you on, and just like include their email address there, and then write them a little message, and then they could approve, or then they'll get that in their inbox. And then once they approve it, they'll be able to log in and view the applicants and auditions for that project and that project only. So like Evelyn and Anne were my producers on that short film. They could see those projects and that project alone. This is important to keep in mind, especially when it comes to, say, auditions. So if you're the director, when you have auditions, you always, always, always want to have at least one other person in the room with you. If you're the director, you really need to be focused on the performer and the performance. Things you should not be doing as the director. You should not be reading lines opposite the actor. You shouldn't be recording the audition. If you are going to record the audition, you can do that, but just have somebody else doing it so you can really be present and focused on the actor. So, you always want to have at least one collaborator with you, and so that's part of what this tool is helpful for as well too. Um, Back to the casting dashboard, when you actually want to see, take a look at the people who have submitted themselves for consideration, you would find your project and you would click go to application manager. It would pop this open. You'd be able to toggle between the different projects. You can toggle between the roles or view all the roles. And then down below in this grid view, you'll be able to see the actors who have submitted themselves for consideration. You'll see their main headshot, their name, and their location. If you want to learn more about a particular actor, all you have to do is click on their main profile photo. It would pop it open. You can learn more about them, see their age range, ethnicities, attributes, skills. Um, you'll see different photos that the actor has chosen to upload, the credits they've chosen to include, and actors also have the ability to upload video clips of themselves from previous performances or auditions if you want to get a sense of their work. Um, there's also a list here where it says what their union affiliation is. One thing I like to say is that like not all actor profiles are created equal. Because actors have full control over what they put on their profile. Um, Some are going to have more than others. Like this profile, for example, she has a lot of stuff. She has a lot of video clips. She has video clips broken up by genre. She's got a lot of different photos and stuff like that. Or she's got a few photos to show her style, where maybe this profile has more photos, but maybe not as more in-depth video clips and stuff like that. I see there's a hand raised. There'll be time for questions right there at the end. If you want to just type your question into the chat, I'll be sure to get to it at the end as well, too. Um, but yeah, that'll just be helpful, with looking through. Just be sure to spend the time to go through, going through each of the actor profiles, and vetting for yourself to get a sense of the performer and whether you think they'll be right for your project. Beneath each actor, there are some buttons that'll help you sort, so you can give an actor a thumbs up to the yes pile if yes, you want to consider them. If you see an actor and you immediately think they're not right for the project, you can give them a thumbs down and move them to a no pile. Don't worry, actors don't see if you give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, so you don't have to worry about hurting anyone's feelings on that front. Only you and your collaborators are going to be able to see that. But it's just to help you because you can go in and be like, I want to look at all my yeses. I want to look at all my no's, or I want to look at all the ones that I haven't sorted through yet. Um, there's the last button here is this one in the lower right-hand corner of each profile, and you can send a message to an actor if you have a question, or this is how actually you can request an audition from an actor. But before I go into how auditions work on Backstage itself, just wanted to cover some general audition basics. So when it comes to an audition, uh, you never send the actor the full script. You only want to send them 1 to 2 pages of the script maximum. And these are 2 pages that you pick that are going to help you decide based upon what the actor does with these 2 pages, whether or not you think they're going to be right for the role. These are also called sides. So again, no more than 2 pages, and you want to send it to the actors 48 hours in advance of preparation. So then that way the actor has time to prepare for the audition. Um, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to gather a team. If you're the director, you always want to have at least one other person in the audition room with you so you can focus on the performer and their performance. Um, especially nowadays and on Backstage, there's the option to do auditions either virtually or in person. If you do them in person, the location of where you do them really matters. So, like, you want it to be a safe and professional environment. A classroom can be a great option. Sometimes, like, libraries at different campuses have spaces that you can rent out. That can be a good option. But you never want to have auditions in, like, a dorm room or a campus dining hall or, like, outside, like in the quad area. Again, it's got to be a safe and professional environment. You want to think about how you're going to schedule your audition day, like how many auditions are you going to see that day? How much time are you giving each actor? If you haven't held auditions before, I think it's safe to give each actor between 10 to 20 minutes, and then you can kind of adjust and adapt from there on like whatever your working style is and what works best for you. Also be sure to give yourself a break. Audition days can be long. Don't forget you're human. You may things need to like eat, use water, use the restroom, things like that. So be sure to plan breaks for yourself. Um, because actors only get to read 1 or 2 pages of your script, you're going to want to reread the script that you fully understand everything because actors might come in with questions for you. Like, where was the character before this scene? Like, what can you give, an idea of like what might happen after? That'll just help the actor place themselves in the audition. Some few more audition basics is actors can be really nervous coming into auditions. Actors of all experience and skill levels. You could have an actor who's been on TV shows and movies, who's worked 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the industry. They still might be nervous in the audition. They've never met you before. They want the role, right? So a friendly greeting goes a long way in helping the actor feel comfortable. People will never forget how you make them feel, and that starts the moment that you meet them. And so with that is a lot of responsibility. And also thinking that like actors, I've found in my experience, do their best work when they feel the most comfortable with a director. And that can really start from the beginning of that relationship. So I think at a bare minimum, you should be treating everybody with professionalism and with kindness. But just think about as the director, you're the creative head of this project in many ways, and like how you set the tone is what everyone else is going to follow, you know, and so that's kind of the power that you have. So to be mindful of that when you go into an audition. Um, Keeping in mind that auditions test for skill and directability, you shouldn't have the expectation that the actor is going to come in and give you like an Academy Award-winning performance in the audition. Uh, you really want them to be able to, you know, like you're trying to get a sense of, do you believe them in the role? Can you communicate with them? Do you think they're going to be a good collaborator? Can they take direction or take notes? I think that no matter what, you should always have an actor do the sides at least twice. The first time can be just having them do it however they prepared. And then the second time's where you can really give them direction and give a sense of like, can they do something different? Can they show you other sides of themselves as a performer? You know, for example, say you've written a scene where someone's saying goodbye to their father on his deathbed, right? And so the actor could come in and they could give you a really emotional performance. Like maybe they cry, maybe they make you cry, maybe it's really sad and heavy in the room. And maybe that's what you want. Great. But maybe that's not what you want. Maybe there's character has different parts or sides to him. Like, how can you see that in the audition with just those same two sides? So you can give them direction to try it differently. You could be like, okay, let's do the scene again. But let's do it as if you can't wait for your dad to die because you're going to get this big inheritance check and you never liked your dad and like you just want the money, right? Hopefully that kind of note would give you a different performance from the actor. You know, if the actor gives you the exact same performance, that also tells you something. You shouldn't expect an actor to become a different person just because you cast them in the role. So, you know, really think about what it is you need to see in that audition to know about whether or not you're going to be able to trust the actor to pull off this role. If you need to see a skill from an actor, like speaking a different language, playing an instrument, things like that, I recommend asking them to do it in the audition. You know, say you said, oh, you need to speak fluent Spanish. Well, it's better to learn whether or not they can speak Spanish fluently in the audition than on like the first day that you're shooting. Or maybe you need them to have it with a Mexican accent and they start speaking with a Cuban accent. Like that's going to be different creative thing, and it's better to learn that in the audition than on set. Um, and then the only exceptions to that is you can't ask an actor to perform a stunt or to touch you or another performer. And then audition days are exhausting, so be sure to take breaks, get water. I think working with actors is one of the best parts of filmmaking. So like, you know, that can be included in the audition process. So just like come in refreshed and ready to work with your performers. Um, so requesting an audition, as I mentioned, there's that button in the corner. You can request an audition there. Then it'll give you two options. You can select a self-tape or a live audition. A self-tape is asking the actor to submit pre-recorded video of themselves doing the performance. You would just specify the role and then type them a message where you can give them some direction. I remember they haven't read the full script, so give them some context for the scene that they're reading, and then give them a deadline to submit the audition video. Otherwise, you could just be waiting forever. The only caveat to that would be that you always want to make sure you give those actors that 48 hours of you know, preparation time. And then under script sides, just be sure to attach those script sides so they know what they're having to read. When it comes to live audition, you'd have two options, virtual or in person. So virtual auditions, you can hold them entirely on the Backstage site. You don't need any Zoom or additional like software like that. But then in-person auditions are like when you have an actor like come to campus, come to a classroom and do that. If you choose to do live auditions in person or virtual, you would just specify which one. It would ask you for some additional information, the audition date, the time zone, the start time, the end time of your audition. Um, and then it'll ask for the time slot, like how much time you're giving each actor. Again, anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes is a good starting point for them to be able to do it twice. You can also pre-plan breaks for yourself, which I recommend doing. I'll give myself a 5-minute break after every three auditions. This is helpful in case, you know, maybe you go overtime with an actor, maybe an actor's running late, maybe you just need to like run and use the restroom. You have yourself some padding in there for that. When it comes to scheduling, you can automatically add actors to time slots. You can add them in the order that you want to see them, And then when it comes to reschedule requests, you can give applicants the option to choose from any time slot that's open, or you can choose a new one for them and send it to the actor for approval. When it comes to those in-person auditions, it's going to ask you for location details. So you want to be sure to put the venue name, all the address information, and then you're going to want to go one step further. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headaches. Is that if you have them coming to campus, you're going to want to message each actor directly with a campus map attached and like please circle like where they should park and then where the audition room is. I would even go another step further that when you have the audition day is to print out signs from with arrows from the parking garage to the building to the room. The more prep time you do for that kind of stuff, the smoother the day is going to go. The actors are going to know where they have to be. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time having your friend or producer who's helping with auditions answering a lot of phone calls from actors who are lost because maybe they haven't been to campus before. So, always recommend going that extra step to make it as smooth of an audition process as possible. Once you've built your schedule, you'll be able to review it. It'll have the name of your project, the date, the time, who you're looking at applicants for, whether it's virtual or in person. And then actors have the ability to check in for their audition 24 hours ahead of time. So you could see like, oh, Franklin here checked in for his audition at 5 p.m. There's a little green check mark there. If you see 24 hours beforehand an actor hasn't confirmed their audition time, I recommend messaging them, reach out to them. Maybe they missed it. Maybe they can't make that time. It's better to get that information because if they can't make it, maybe you want to reschedule or maybe you want to see another actor in that time slot. Um, when it comes to self-tapes and virtual auditions, those will automatically record and be uploaded to the actor's profile 30 minutes after they've been submitted. So if I were like, I didn't do virtual auditions, but I did self-tapes. So if I were to go back to my application manager, there's this little tab that showed up that says self-tapes. I would other one that would say auditions if I had done virtual auditions. But I would go to self-tape, go to the 9 that were received. I would click on an actor's profile, go to roles and auditions. And there I could watch the actor's audition, I could add it to a playlist, or I could download it directly onto my hard drive if I need to do that. And these will stay up and you'll be able to access them even after your project's done. So you can always reference back. Maybe, yeah, sometimes you see an actor and you're like, oh, I love this actor, but they're just not right for this project. But like you have that information if you need to, or maybe on the next film you want to work with them or you want to offer them the ability to audition on that next one. Um, there's a video here that I'll send a link out to Andrea that like and that to be able to share with all of you as well as a full copy of this deck too, so you guys can have your own hard copy of it as well. This video clip will just kind of show you the layout of the virtual audition room if that's the route that you want to go. You know, the buttons are similar enough to like Zoom and Google Hangouts, but different enough to be their own thing. So it's just like as a reference if you decide to go on the virtual audition route. Um, Other thing I want to mention is that so Mandy and Star Now are actually two of our like sister companies or brands. These are separate talent databases themselves. You can use your Backstage login to log into all three, and you can use the promo code to post across all three for free. So, that's going to be really helpful when you are trying to find as many applicants as possible for a role. In general, the more specific the thing you're looking for, the actor you're looking for, the harder it can be. So for my last film, the hardest role to cast was I needed to find um, a Latina actress who was over 60, who is non-union, who spoke Spanish fluently with a Mexican accent. So because I had all of those criteria, that was the hardest role to cast because it was the most specific thing that I was looking for. So when you're looking for something very specific, you want to give yourself more time, but it's also going to be helpful to post on all three of these sites to cast as wide of a net as possible. Additionally, Mandy, while has actors, is primarily known for crew. So if you were trying to post a call for like a cinematographer or a production designer, you might have more luck posting on Mandy than necessarily Backstage. So kind of that same login and the same code will be able to help you to post on all three. Um, to that crew thing, particular one thing I want to highlight here too is that You're going to be able to make your own crew profile on Backstage as well too. This is helpful for two reasons. It's like a mini LinkedIn page. You can put some information about yourself, your experience, things, projects you've done, etc. But this is helpful because as you saw, you're going to be looking at all these actor profiles, and in today's world, if you're looking at someone's profile, they're probably looking at yours. So the more information you can give them about yourself, the more it might encourage them to submit for the project. And secondly, if you have a crew profile like this, you can submit yourself for work if you're trying to get jobs outside of school during summer break. If you want to get more on-site experience, you can go ahead and use the crew profile for that. It's free to create a crew profile on Backstage. For Mandy, you have to have Mandy Premium, but there's a code in the deck that I'll send out that you'll have a copy of, so you can get a year of Mandy Premium for free. A lot of crew people who work in like production jobs talk about how Mandy was how they got their first gig. So it can be something that you can explore too if you're looking to get more work after graduation or during the summer. Um, and then the last slide I have here is a reminder of the promo code CSUEA Cast. There's some additional links here, including the production guidelines for SAG student films, some of the child labor laws, additional casting tips. And this is also where you'll find my email, which I can type right into the chat as well too. I did see some questions come in that I want to be sure that I answer. Um, and then I'm going to send out a copy of the deck to Andrea, and then hopefully she can send it out to all the people who registered or signed up. If not, you have my email in here as well too, so you can email me, and I can be sure to send you a copy of the deck as well too. Um, I know there's a lot of information, there's a lot of talking on my part, but I'm going to scroll back up and take a look at some of the questions that came in, and then you can be free to add more questions into the chat. So the first question I see is from Michael about our karaoke clips. Good to add for the actor profile. They can be. I mean, I think sometimes it can be difficult when you're getting started knowing what to put up there, right? Because you need acting roles, but maybe you haven't had acting roles yet. So karaoke clips can be helpful if you're, especially if it's like a singing role, maybe. But I think that other things that people have done or actors have done is that they've put up video clips of themselves doing like acting monologues, like from different movies, like picking a scene from their favorite movie, recording themselves doing it, and then uploading that as just something to get started with. And so that can be something that you could think that might, it's going to be dependent upon what the role is that you are looking for, but just making sure that, if it's a super dramatic role and you want that, maybe a karaoke clip isn't going to be the best fit for that. Maybe you should record yourself as an actor doing something like a more dramatic scene. Um, it says, can you give us a hypothetical 2 or 3 sentence for role play description, for example, Little Red Riding Hood? So yeah, I think like thinking about like Little Red Riding Hood, like what are some words that you could use to describe her that don't have to do with her physical appearance? So like I would think like maybe naive, trusting. So like, what is she, how old is she? Like, 10 to 12 years old, little girl excited to see her grandmother, maybe is too trusting, believes what other people tell her, like to a fault or something like that. I think the example that I showed in my project from before. Where did it go? Roles and submission settings. Here, I'll share this again too, because that might be helpful as well too. Um, so for this project, I wrote an impish and playful vampire who's been around for 200 years. She has an incredible zeal for life and loves being a creature of the night. So I didn't tell you anything about what she looks like, but you can see if I swapped out some of the words. So if instead of impish and playful, like if I put um, angry and cursed, right? And instead of, and hates being a creature of the night or like feels like torn about being a vampire, that would give you a different sense of who she is, right? Or instead of impish and playful, like maybe spiteful and mean vampire who's been around for 200 years. That's different than being like playful or like fun, right? And so thinking more about those kind of words that can, how you can just adjust a couple of words in terms of like what their personality is. So maybe your Little Red Riding Hood isn't naive. Maybe she's, wise beyond her years, that would give you a different interpretation of the character. So that's really like why you want to like play around and mess with different things. And then again, my always tip is like once you write one out, share it with a friend or a collaborator and be like, hey, what's your interpretation of this person? And like thinking like, do they understand the character in what you're seeing in your head? Um, the next question I see is that what kind of scenes are best for general auditions? It really does depend on your story and the script and the nature of, I think it's like thinking about who this character really is as a whole, and then trying to find the 1 to 2 pages that best showcase that personality. Like if it was like the Little Red Riding Hood thing, I think that like for that one, it would be, the part of where she's talking to the big bad wolf, but she thinks it's her grandma, right? That to me feels like the scene that you would really need to sell as that character. Like, oh, I need to believe that you believe this person's your grandma, that you like your grandma, that you're also a little like you're not really getting that this person is like a wolf in disguise. Like that would be like the best scene to highlight. So, finding that maybe the scene where like the actor or that character really shines and honing in on that one. Um, Hopefully that answered your question. But yeah, it's going to be different for each character and each thing. So like different characters that you're auditioning will have different sides, like if you were auditioning the wolf, maybe you'd want a scene where they're scarier because that's the part that really matters to you. It's going to be up to you to focus on like what it is. Um, do I know who the actor Avi Spitzer is? I don't think so. Maybe did they show up on the profile or something? That they could be a backstage member. What makes an acting profile look good? I think that's a good question. I think that it's going to be a well-balanced profile. I think first of all, you want to have the information be clear. You want to have good, high-quality photos of yourself. Maybe choosing uh, 2 or 3 looks of different types of roles that you can kind of play. I think a mistake that early actors make is like they try to be something they want to be everything to everybody. And that can be hard, right? And it's like kind of like understanding what your niche is or what kind of roles you're going to be able to kind of like start to form a name for yourself and then you can like kind of branch out from there. So I think suggesting like 2 or 3 looks, having video clips is really helpful. If you have any completed work, like finished films or commercials or content to include on there is really good. And then if you have like whatever your skills are, really put those in. Again, when people are looking for things that are really specific, that's how they're gonna find you. Like if they need someone who speaks a language or plays an instrument, or like I remember they needed like some show needed an actor who spoke an indigenous language, right? And they need someone who was fluent in that language. They really like any actor who was fluent in that language who put it on their profile went to the top of their results because there are so few people that can do that. So whatever it is that you can do that like or that you're just really good at, maybe you're really good at playing soccer or maybe you're really good at playing the violin or whatever, like when people come looking for that specific thing, make sure that it's highlighted so that they can find you. Um, let's see. When do you recommend to post casting before film? 4 months might be a little soon. I think anywhere like 3 to 4 weeks can be good in terms of before you want to start shooting. For that, especially for like unpaid projects or student projects, because if an actor's doing your project, they're gonna do it unpaid, but if they get a paying gig, they're gonna want to take that instead too. And so if you book too far in advance, they may, if they get a call from like Coke to be in a Coke commercial, it's gonna be hard to compete, and then you're gonna end up needing to find an actor for that too. So I think 3 to 4 weeks is good. And then, but if you need something like hyper specific, is to you want to give yourself a little bit more time. And like one thing I will say too, and I'll share my screen again real quick, is that what you can also do if you want to be a little bit more proactive about it is if you go to Backstage, let me make sure I'm on, that's the admin side. If you go to backstage.com, whatever, you can actually look through the talent database. So if you go to find talent on Backstage, um, If you click that, you can actually specify what you're looking for and look through the talent database based upon these different filters. So you can like look through people like in like San Francisco, who are non-union, who maybe are, you need someone who's Latino, who is has a specific skill, like can speak Spanish, right? But maybe you want them to you need a specific kind of accent or whatever. And then you can hit view results and then the thing will pop up and show you the actors who qualify from those filters, and then you can actually invite them to apply to your project as well too. Um, so I guess sometimes if you're not finding what you need right away, or if you're looking for something hyper specific, you can go out and be proactive and take a search on that as well. Question here: do you mention where the best platforms are to find child actors, performers? The TV show I'm writing is about middle schoolers. Child actors are on Backstage as well too. We have that their parents have set up the profile or their agent has set up the profile for them. So you can find child actors on Backstage, Mandy, and Star Now as well. So I would recommend starting there to look for folks. Um, some red flags to avoid when considering actors for your project. It's a great question. Um, I think as much as you're auditioning the actor as an actor, remember you're auditioning them as a person too. And so I think that like if someone ghosts you, takes forever to reply to messages, shows up 20 minutes late all the time, like they're not going to become a different person just because you give them the role, right? And so usually when you give somebody the role, it's only going to magnify who they are already. So I think like as much as you're looking, oh, I want the best actor, also look at like who's the best communicator, who's going to be on time, who's going to show up and do the work, because that's just as important at the end of the day. And it's going to cause you a lot, and your production team and your producers a lot less stress there. Um, my friend wants to do a TV show. Realistically, how long will this take if he's done with the script, if he takes it seriously? I mean, like, do you mean like moving into production? Because it depends. Are you doing it the network or studio route? Is he going to try to do it independently?
He's
I
uh
think,
he's doing it independently, and then I think it's like zero funding, kind of just like with his iPhone at the time. Like I don't know if he has plans to get a videographer. Um, but right now there's like no production budget. I think he's in the middle of casting, kind of reaching out, but like he has it as a finished script. I think it's just hard to get him to the push. And I've kind of encouraged
Mhm.
him to do it as like a play first to raise some funding, but he hasn't been listening to me about that. So I wanted to know what your thoughts are.
Oh, I mean, it's hard. I mean, every project's different. Every production, it depends on which way you want to do it. Like, do you want to do something that's at a network studio level? If it's his first thing, typically I think that like it's always better to start small and like maybe a play or doing it really with some group of actors. Doing a table read even of the script first can be a great first step because then you're going to see how it sounds with real actors bringing those words to life, and being able to work beyond what was on the page, and maybe it may change his perspective on some things, or maybe it helps him get some additional support or changes or add some new light. So I think like hearing actors speak it out loud for the first time can be something, table read, a play, just, maybe recording it on his phone with some friends and kind of like learning and doing that from there, like roughly, and then just trying to scale up from there. I think it's really hard to go from zero to like 100 on something, to go from like maybe it's your first thing to then getting a huge budget and getting like a lot of support and stuff. So like just doing what can you do with the resources you have right now, and taking a little step forward, and because you'll be surprised about how much you can learn from that, and just how good it feels to have like real people working with you on a project at that point.
That's good. I guess my other kind of follow up to that is like, what's the average amount of time that you think that you can retain an actor until they just like fall off and they say it's like not worth your time? Because I know it could be like, if you keep them on a hook for like 2 months, 3 months, and they're like, come on, like when's the next thing coming? Like, have you seen that there's like a
Yeah,
maybe
I
like
mean that's the thing. If it's unpaid work, you should be ready, prepared to lose an actor whenever it's a paid work. I think that's
all
just
the
part of,
time?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I think that that's like that's the nature of the industry, especially if like they may love the project, but if there's no like real need or impetus that it has to be done at a certain time, then like they're going to pick the thing where people are putting a real deadline on them or giving them actual salary. I've seen
Mhm.
friends or other people keep actors on the hook for a while, and I mean, that's why casting, I think it's best to like when you know your production dates to start casting like a month or two ahead of time for like a shorter project is generally ideal. And if you don't have those production dates and stuff in mind, then maybe just cast for like a table read, or something like that, where you do have a real deadline in which they'll be able to like do something and be able to perform. Because actors really, they want to work, but they're going to go to where the work and opportunities are, and they can't, wait forever.
I just want to chime in here. So we have 5 minutes left for this call. So I think we can take one more question and then Gerardo, this has
Okay.
been so incredible to like learn from you directly and all the students' questions, they're really great. So I'll let you pick.
Oh man. Let's see. Um, all right, I'll do the one about specialized skills, other ways, just because the last one, Jacob, the casting background extras is really like it's a similar process, just like know what you're looking for. You just select background casting and then people know to submit themselves and stuff. And you can really just cast from headshots. You don't need to audition them. For the specialized skills and stuff like that, I think that like sometimes writing a cover letter can help you stand out. You can submit like a message when you submit your application and maybe writing why you want the part specifically. If there's anything personal or resonance to you that can help you stand out as well. Like why, if you really want to stand out, why do you really think that you should play this part? What is it about this role that, that you can bring that you feel like nobody else in the applicant pool could bring? And if you can clarify that, I think reading through everything and then whatever the specific instructions are, I think that's like one of the best pieces of advice in general across the industry as a whole too, is like if people give instructions, if you've read and followed those instructions, you're already like 80% ahead of so many other people. So many people see things and don't bother to read or don't bother to pay attention to the details. So if you can write a message and where you can communicate like, hey, I read this, I know what you're looking for. This is why I'm qualified. That puts you ahead of like 80% of people who aren't bothering to read the full thing and like take that extra time. So, being intentional, doing it with care, and being mindful, I think are all the things. And like ultimately though, don't take it personally, which I know is like the worst or most cliched advice, but there's so many talented actors. Like sometimes I'm like, I wish I could write or make films for so many different people, but sometimes an actor is amazing, but they're just not right for that role necessarily either. And it's heartbreaking, but it's nothing to do with you and your performance ability either. So I think that's all you can do is be intentional and have care. Um, and be clear, and then at that point you've done everything that you can.
Well, thank you so much, Gerardo. This was incredibly insightful, and thank you everyone for joining. So, as Gerardo mentioned, you can always email him or you can reach out to us at the CSUEA on Instagram or the CSU Entertainment Alliance on LinkedIn if you're looking for the deck. I'd be happy to send that over to you all. Thank you so much for joining the session.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Of course.
All
All
right,
right, bye.
bye.